Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of CUZZO-OP. My name is Isaiah, also known as IV, and I am one of the co-hosts here at CUZZO-OP. I'm also joined by my brother and my cousin.
Arrow to the face, also known as Willie.
And today we want to have a very serious conversation with you for you sci-fi fans. You might have already noticed by clicking and seeing the photo and the link, and the title. We're here to talk about Alien Romulus. And we know that we have to be careful about how we say what we say on this one because this is a cult classic series. All right, I'm gonna put that preface. So before we even jump into Willie already shaking his head. He's here for the madness. That's fine. You could be here for the madness. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it light. I'm gonna take it easy. You know what I mean? Um, but we have to jump into this movie because I do have some thoughts on it. As soon as I saw the film, I started freaking out. So I was like, we definitely need to have this episode. At first, this wasn't even scheduled. But then when we synced, he was like, oh, I saw this. Did you see that? And I was like, yo, can we talk about that? Can we talk about that? And that is how we are here today. Notice we didn't do an Alien episode. So we're not going to sit here and talk about all of the other Alien movies. Maybe that will come later down the line. We're here to just talk about Romulus. That's all we want to talk about. But we have a couple of pillars that we usually go through here at CUZZO-OP. We usually touch on sound. Then we love to go through cinematography. Then after that, we like touching writing, the script, the way the story is shaped. And then, of course, we love to show love or hate to the acting of the movie. But before we even get into those pillars, let's start off with this. Tell me about your familiarity with this series and what your experience looked like when you saw this movie. How'd that go down for you, Errol?
All right. So, for me, right? I mean, I had seen Alien 1, the original OG Alien, last year for the first time, I want to say, during my 365-day movie challenge. And so throughout that challenge, something that I'm actually going to be talking about by the end of the year is my experience with that challenge. And within that, there is, you watch one movie every day, sometimes forcing yourself to do it. There are going to be times where movies don't stick as well in your memory as they do.
Hmm.
And so when Romulus was beginning to come out, I'm like, I did watch that, but let me watch it again. And I watched it again, and I was like, okay. And then I hit up people, and I was like, I know no one knows this, but Romulus is dropping. What do you think I need to watch? Should I watch all of the movies? And no one knew how to answer that question properly.
Hmm.
So they're like, maybe just Alien and Aliens. So the day I was going to watch Romulus, that night before, or even the morning of, I watched Aliens. And then I went to go see Romulus. I watched two movies before I had watched Romulus also. I was doing like a marathon day over at AMC. I saw Trap, and then I saw Kaku, I believe it was called. And then I went into this, and I'll tell you what, as someone who watched that first one, I was like, all right, I get it. It's a classic. It's cool. I respect it. And then Aliens, less so. I'm not much of a care for Aliens the way other people are, which I can explain at some point now and
You just
eventually.
hate James Cameron. That's why.
Um, yeah, I didn't realize it was James until a certain point, but um, I sat and I watched this movie, crowded theater, like I'm talking super duper packed. It was the day it was dropping, like that Thursday showing. Um, my goodness, it was a really really fun experience to sit and watch Romulus for a first time, which we'll get into. So much so that more than Alien or Aliens made me want to go through the whole franchise, which I have
Sure.
since then done. And
Sure.
then I've watched Romulus a second time. So that is where I am entering this conversation at.
Mm.
And I will save my hot takes and all that for you later. What is your experience with the franchise and going into Romulus and this conversation?
Yeah, so I've seen bits and pieces of other movies. The original, obviously, Aliens. I've seen a good piece of Prometheus. Part of why I even went into Prometheus in Covenant was because of Fassbender. I was like, oh, the actor's bringing me into the story. But then you also know about, Alien versus Predator, who hasn't seen that or isn't familiar with that in Requiem. Like, everyone knows about the idea of AVP. Like, people know about that. But when it comes to like being a cinephile that knows his sci-fi and has seen all these movies, unfortunately I'm not one of those. And so we got an invitation. I wasn't even intending to see this movie, but shout out to my boy Tom. Tom hit me and another friend of mine, George, who I often see movies with. and he was like, "Yo, you guys want to go see this movie?" And we were like, yeah, let's run it. So I bought the tickets because I'm Cinemark, you AMC, I'm Cinemark. I'm about to be platinum. I got like 5 or 10 more tickets to buy. I'm outside. But I went to go see it. We get there and Tom's like, "Have you guys seen any of these other ones?" And we're like, "Nah." And he's like, "Yo, what the?" And we're like, "Yo, bro, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, we're coming in here honestly blind. Like, I don't know anything. I saw the trailer. I saw the thing get in his mouth. I said, 'Yo, this is crazy.' The trailer was wild." That's what it's bringing me in. What's bringing me in is the cinematography of that trailer. That's part of why I'm interested as a movie fan.
Right.
So same for my boy George. We get in there, bro. Man, when that movie began, I was like low key, like, how scary is this gonna be? It's gonna be scary. I don't really like scary movies. Is this scary? I was pleased to say it's not that scary. It's more of a thriller than it is like a horror type flick. But man, when I left, I was like, I had to let it sit. I'm in the whip. I'm in the car on the way home. And then I was like, yo, that might have been one of my favorite movie experiences of the year. I was like, it doesn't top Dune 2, because Dune 2, shout out Denis. You know how I feel. You go back and listen. But this movie is definitely at the second place for me
So,
personally. That's
so
how I felt
since
when I left.
since you talking about it, bro, since you talking about it,
When I
this was
left.
my favorite movie watching experience this year in theaters. Being with the audience and watching it unfold in real time, by far my favorite.
Yeah.
And it has become, it was battling with Furiosa, which we haven't been able to discuss yet.
Mm.
It was battling for that, for number one. And I had to sit and think about it for maybe a week or two. And I watched the franchise and I was like, yeah, it's this. So right now, as this
At
current
this
point in
moment.
time,
Mm.
at this moment, September, what is it, 13th? Uh, it's my favorite movie of 2024. And that goes into the genres that I have the heart for, the actors and all that we're gonna talk about later. But
Yeah.
ooh, I'm excited for this combo, especially because again, it was like, yo, Ivy, you seen this? Oh, I did see that. We got to talk about it. And I was like, okay, so this is some real shit. Got it.
Yes, and what it reminds me of, honestly, is similar to The Creator in our conversation we had about The Creator last year. This was one of those movies I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, and so that was part of what made it great. It's always great when you don't expect it, and that's where it's like, putting yourself out there, watching things that you may not have watched before, can be really important in having an excellent experience as an entertainment consumer. So I'm really glad that we both saw this, and I'm glad we're here to talk about this right now. Now, before we jump in, just want to remind everybody of a couple of things. Ridley Scott is obviously the brain and the original director of Alien, and he's come back to do Prometheus and Covenant back in the 2010s. But the original movie was 1979. So this is a series that's long standing. And that's part of the reason why that theater was so electric. I'm sure the people who were in that theater are probably not like, us. They're probably people who ride or die, like my boy Tom, and they have seen them all. And I wish I'd seen them all, because that's one thing we'll talk about today. The homage that is littered throughout this movie is so beautifully done by director Fede Alvarez. And I think that's also part of why it was such a good flick. Fede has this really good way of creating tension in films. This is a director who did The Don't Breathes. He's the one that did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He did Evil Dead. He's got this gritty, punchy thrill, and he knows how to tie that together into human stories. And that is the entire premise, right? The entire premise of Alien movie. They come across this alien race, the humans, and their stories, their romances, their relationships, and then it leaves this exposition on the human condition with the lens of the alien. And that is exactly what this movie ended up doing so beautifully. So let's jump in. Let's talk first and foremost, our first pillar here at CUZZO-OP. Let's talk about sound. Let's talk about the sound in this movie.
So, I mean, I like to merge things at times. I think each episode we do a movie on, we kind of change the way we do some of the pillars around. And so, with you saying this is a thriller, horror, whatever you want to call it, sound is extremely important in these kind of movies. 10 out of 10. Straight up.
Yeah.
No funny shit. 10 out
Yeah.
of 10. Whether it be the sounds of just the xenomorph or whatever you might be hearing echoing in the back, to when they decide to let a sound from a scene, even when the visual has changed to a different scene from the last scene, the audio is still in it,
Yep.
but they're showing you something else, or
Yep.
just the music or the one to make you feel all of it. 10 out of 10. 10 out
Yeah.
of 10. I
Yeah.
have literally nothing bad or complaining to do regarding sound at
Yeah.
all.
Absolutely. And I think, one of my favorite movies, it's been in my top 10 for a while, and this honestly might challenge it and try to wrestle with it in my top 10, is It, in It Chapter 2. And the composer, I think it's Wallfish is his name, Benjamin Wallfish. He did It. He was in It, and he also worked with Zimmer on Blade Runner, which is these are the type of movies where sound is part of the soundscape. It's part of setting the world. I mean, sound is something that a lot of us overlook. We look more for everything else, but these guys, they understand the assignment. A great score is not just one that you do want to listen to when you leave. It's one that almost doesn't, you don't even notice, because it's like it's so embedded in the tone of the film that it's like the walls in a room. You're not looking at
Right.
every wall. So I think that that's something they definitely accurately did, and they did
Yeah.
very well in this
And
movie.
you wonder, like, if that wall weren't there, would it all be the same? And
I
there
don't
are
think
some
so.
scores that I think about where I'm like, yo, if In Another Life wasn't behind the scene of Wayman and Evelyn in Everything Everywhere All at Once, would I
Yeah.
feel the way I do about that scene?
Yeah.
Or the entire ending of Loki season 2, if Natalie Holt didn't cook with that, does it hit the same? And that's the
Mhm.
same here with sound in any movie, really.
I agree. I agree, man. They definitely knew what they were doing, and even stuff like the alarms from the ship, the sci-fi sounds. There's so much homage in that too. You watch old clips from the other movies, or if you're familiar with those movies, they got it all down to a T. You know what I mean? Sound design. Let's talk about like something as simple as like when the ship comes in and it connects itself to the main ship that they go into in the film, and the clamping of the lock. We've seen that so many times. For me, as a Nolan fan, I'm reminded of Interstellar, but Nolan wasn't the first one to do something like that. Those things, they just get the right feeling in each of the sounds. Even the way things, aliens are blasting out of human bodies, like it's like
I was gonna bring up the
ooh, the
moment in
body
this
horror.
movie where you hear it shifting inside of I forgot her name,
Yeah,
which I'm sure you'll be able to find it easily, but homegirl on the ship
Navarro,
where
Navarro.
Navarro's there and you hear it just like cracking her bones to break out. It's done so well that I'm hearing it now. I'm still hearing it. Just talking about it, I hear those snaps
Yep,
and cracks and
yep.
all of that other stuff. So yeah, nah, they cooked, bro. They really did just cook in the small moments as well as the big ones. Cause I'm talking, you know, there are big moments in this movie,
Oh yeah,
but even
absolutely.
just the like the crackling of the xenomorph down the hall and you hear it getting closer, or just the whimpers and you're like, oh shoot, what's going on here, what's happening? It's great. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Honestly, bro, shout outs to Eileen Wu in that scene too. The acting combined with the sound is just so great. And we're gonna keep shouting out these actors as we keep moving and grooving. Side note, we'll get there, but if they need somebody for Last of Us Part Two, if they need somebody for Last of Us Part Two to
They
play
already
the
cast it, bro. They already cast it, bro.
damn
But
it.
the whole movie, bro, the whole movie, I was thinking about so
Damn
many
it.
things, so many. It's there's actually a really funny joke and funny insight that we'll get to whenever you want. If
Damn
you
it.
want to do it during actors, or
Whatever, drop it if you want. I don't
it's
care.
just a fun trivia piece from Alvarez. So I'll save it. I'll save it for later. I'll save it for
Cool.
later.
So yeah, that was definitely a great part. Sound is beautiful in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets some looks and some awards and some nominations. I'm not saying the highest. I don't know. I just do know they'll definitely get some love for sure. Another thing that's definitely going to get love in this movie is the cinematography. And a lot of times we overlook who it is that is responsible for cinematography. There is an actual director or a person responsible for photography. I'm pretty sure his name is Gallo Olivares. But working together with Fide, the two of them definitely knew what they wanted to do. They knew how they wanted to do homage, get certain scenes, get certain feelings. But it's right from the beginning, man. This gritty, apocalyptic feeling of being stuck on this planet, and the way it looks dirty and the streets feel dirty, and it's got that kind of like cyberpunky type feel. They accurately depicted that. The way that the horror of this abandoned station, everything in there is broken bottles in the labs, the holes from the acid of the aliens, the way lights flicker, even the way that the things that the characters are wearing speak to who they are as characters. Those are the things, again, similar to what we said about sound. You don't really notice them unless you really want to, unless you're really looking for them. And that's how you know they knew they built a world that was meaningful. I loved the cinematography and the shots in this movie. They were so good. Any of them come to mind for you? Like, what do you think about any scenes that we were like, damn, this is just so great, like, it's such a good shot?
I mean, listen, first things first, I want to backtrack to Ridley Scott.
Oh,
I feel
word.
like a lot of his movies are beautiful movies.
They are.
Like, he might be one of the most, his films might be one of the most beautiful, like, beautifully shot stuff I've seen.
Yeah.
The opening to Prometheus, oof. But
Sick.
coming here, it was handled incredibly well because it hasn't always been done well in the Alien franchise before. So I'm going to be talking about some of that a little bit. Um, in this movie, you know where everything takes place because of the way they shot the movie. You
Yep.
never question for a moment where you are,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening on where. Everything is unique. Even the two spaceships, you know which spaceship you're on by the way it looks.
Yes.
That is amazing. I think you never have to question where a character is headed. If you see a character turn down a hallway, they've told you or they've shown you what's down that hallway or where they're running back to. The opening planet with Andy and
Yeah.
Rain
Yeah.
is amazing. I loved it. Their attire on the planet is dope because it feels real, but it also doesn't. It matches the energy. It reminded me of the beginning of Solo, but I kind of like this one more in the
Oh,
sense
yeah.
that it matched. Like, it really did feel ingrained in Alien, what I've
It
seen
did,
of the
yeah.
whole franchise.
Yeah.
Their spaceship flying out into space, and they have that wow moment with Rain, and they're like, "Yo, this is something. This is hope for you. It's beautiful." And just the ring of the planet, the closer and closer they get, and once that all starts going down, forget about it.
Yeah.
It was stunning to watch. I was like, "Yo, just leave this up. Just leave it up the
Yeah.
whole
You could
time."
just let me sit there for a little bit. And I
Right.
think they did. They had moments where it was like you get a shot from outside the ship and it's quiet, and you're just like, and it became an eerie yet beautiful thing that they
Right, and
added.
like an impending doom, but also freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And I don't even know if this would land in sound or cinema, or maybe it's just in the middle. There's little things like, the countdown of how much time is left before this. Like, that time is actually quite accurate with what you're seeing on the screen. So the tension exists in more ways than one dimensionally. And that is part of why it's such an invigorating experience for you as the viewer. They thought about that. They were intentional about that amidst the editing process. And it's just so good. Yeah, I agree. You never know when you never are confused on where you're at. You already know where you're at. And if
and
you are confused, it's because the character is too.
exactly. Alien 3, just because I said I wanted to bring up um, problems. That movie has a lot of
It
problems.
does.
David Fincher hated low key his experience on it, which is kind of wild when Chris Nolan comes out and says, I think that's some of the best work he's ever done. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, that is kind of wild.
That movie, lost. There's a 30-minute sequence where they're just running through tunnels and you don't know what's where, who's where, or
Facts.
anything.
Facts. I've seen the
So
scenes on that. There's like
it's
photos of those on that's mad
it's
funny.
ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so it's so crazy. Again, two different spaceships in this movie, two different wings in one spaceship, and you know where you are. And no
Yes.
matter what,
Yes.
that's good work. That's
It
good
is.
work.
It is good work. So congrats to you guys. Congrats to you guys for putting together a beautiful movie, because we feel it. We can definitely feel it with the way you shot it. Um, let's stop for a second. and we're about to enter into the writing of this movie. And I want to ask you this question before we jump in: is the reason why this movie has been one, your favorite experience of the year? Is it because of the story, or is it because of the feeling of like everything all together? Like, is the
I want to
writing
say
big for you?
everything.
Hmm.
Everything. Everything in this movie has made it my favorite experience this year, to the point where I'm heavily considering it, as of right now, changing my grade for it,
Hmm.
because I there's a lot here.
Yeah.
And I hear the complaints online. There are complaints, and I guess I understand it, but for me, I view it differently for this film.
Sure.
And, when we were creating this idea of this episode, I told you, I said, yo, there's something that the fandom of this franchise feels, that when I tell you it, when we record, it might change your perspective. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to get into that
Nah,
when the
let's jump
time
in. What's
comes.
that? Say what's up. What's up? Talk to me about
Um,
that a little bit, man. I want to hear
what
about
have
that.
you what have you heard about this movie from fans
I haven't
specifically?
heard much, to be honest.
Okay.
I've been kind of staying away from that.
So the first day it dropped, somebody that I know, their phrasing, they gave the movie a 5 out of 10. It's their least favorite in the franchise, and their phrasing of it was, "This is the Force Awakens of the Alien franchise."
Oh God.
This movie does nothing new. This movie is the same old. This movie takes something from every Alien movie and it puts it together. This is just an Aliens best hits movie. So that's all that was put out there.
What do
They
you think
take
about that?
something from. So Alien dropped in 1979, following, Aliens followed that. Then Alien 3, which took this franchise somewhere else. Alien Reborn or Rebirth, whatever that movie was called, Resurrection, that dropped. And then Ridley Scott took the franchise in a different direction with Prometheus and Covenant. And so,
Because only he could, in my
right. And I
opinion.
think, when was Covenant? 2017. So it's been
2017.
7 years.
Hmm.
Um, the way I see this movie, number one is, does it pay homage? Does it give you fun things to look at, and a very
Bring back
controversial
characters.
thing, very controversial, but does it do that? Yes. Um, but I feel like it's a celebration. I feel like this movie is a celebration, combining elements from everything, taking this being a direct sequel to Alien in the terms of chronological order of the universe. It takes place before Aliens. Um, Taking Prometheus concepts and Covenant concepts and bringing it into the fold here, concepts from Resurrection, and perfecting it here and showcasing. I think it's very interesting when film universes are out of order, because it makes you go back and watch something else differently that takes
Right.
place later down the line.
Right.
Um, I thought that this was Alvarez's way of sharing and creating something that he loves and something that he loved, and doing something different with his own way. Um, but I would argue that there are differences in there too. I think it was something made by a fan that he was just going to hope million fans could love. And I'll tell you, this made me a fan more than the original ever did,
Yeah.
because I just felt like this one was, again, celebratory. Is it safe? Some would call it safe, absolutely. But I don't mind that sometimes. You know what I mean? I think sometimes there is room for the safety, especially since who knows what this could give birth to. Since
Right.
the Covenant wasn't necessarily beloved and Ridley didn't get his third film in the trilogy he wanted. So who's to say that this can't spark something new for possibilities of that? Um, so I think I understand why people would say, "Oh, yeah, sure, I don't like it," but I don't. To call this a bad movie, you lost me. If you're
Nah,
calling
they're
this a
tripping.
bad movie, you lost me. If you don't like it, I understand. Sure, I'll hear you out. But I think there are a lot of things here that you got to give credit to, and if you're not, it's because, I don't know, maybe you're just a little too tied down to the old.
Yeah. I think that always is it, and probably the people who are saying that feel similarly about the sequel trilogy. To be honest,
We've had
you know what I
plenty of
mean.
conversations
We've
about
had
that,
so
but
many
like
conversations about it.
also found myself, and I'm gonna explore my bias, maybe bias. I don't know, maybe just pattern. I don't know what you would call it. I like these movies a lot.
Yeah,
I like The Force Awakens, sometimes even more than A New Hope. Don't crucify me.
that's
I
crazy.
like Halloween 2018 more than OG Halloween. And
Yes.
I like this more than I like Alien.
Mm-hmm.
I like these movies that take what was done before, do it again, but also mix it up a bit, because not only because they all feel like they're celebrating what came before. It doesn't feel like they're remaking.
No,
It feels like they're celebrating and enhancing and adding
pushing
to
it forward.
also,
They're pushing it forward.
and I'm okay with it when it's done well. When it's clearly cheap, nah. But JJ was a fan of New Hope,
Yeah,
you know?
100%. Because
They were
that
fans of
movie
this.
and this movie are influential films. They're influential films for all of cinema and story forever. You know what I mean? Like that's what this movie. This is a pillar of this genre. You know what I mean? So it's like, bro, you could say that this is simple, and tons of other movies are if it's based off the same claim that that person or these people are saying on the internet. And so I agree with you, man. It's like I would argue it sometimes can be even harder to properly pay homage while trying to innovate, because you're trying to do two things. You're not just going in a completely different direction like we saw with some of the other directors that after Ridley did the first film. You really are trying to do more of, how do I respect where I come from while also taking it further, taking it to a different place, taking it to a more. And then this film, I think when we talk about writing, that's what I loved about the movie. Not only was it beautiful, not only was it invigorating and exciting and thrilling, but it was also just beautifully written. They're talking about some insane things about the human condition in this movie. And they're using the idea of this alien force as a backdrop to say these things. And what's beautiful is they don't just say it outright. They use subtext to do a lot of that speaking. And I think that is
Yes.
probably my favorite part about the movie in terms of
And
it
people
being
are ignoring it. People are
ignoring it,
ignoring it.
ignoring it.
And I'm starting the conversation. Characters. People are ignoring the characters. What is this sad ass group? We had the OG crew, the aliens crew, even the Prometheus group and the Covenant group, and who the hell are these sad ass kids? I'm like, so wait a minute, what's the problem with them? You think they're badly written? They just poor versions of what we've had before. How? They're not anything but we've had before. And that's why I like this group more than any group that's been in the franchise so far,
Sure.
because they're not a military force going in ready for battle. They're not even a group that was out there for purposes of working for the company.
No,
There's some down on their luck, poor kids trying to find a future for
they're
themselves more
prisoners.
than just what they've been given in life. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to take the hand they've been dealt
Mm-hmm.
and go further than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that 100%. So when they get into the situation that they get into, it's more tragic than workers for a company trying to get a little bit of a bonus, or action stars that are going into the depths of hell and getting
Mm-hmm.
fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
These are kids that all they wanted was a better future. And they're losing because of the greed of the people and corporations around them. And I think that that's fucking sick.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. And I'm staying on my favorite group from the
I
franchise right
think,
here.
I mean, I can't speak on the others because I haven't seen them fully, and I think that leaves me at a deficit. But at the end of the day, it's like you're seeing kids that you want to win. You want them to win, and they're setting up these dynamics. Where the dynamics of like even the character, what's his name, Bjorn. They let him be this antagonistic force toward Andy and Rain, who you first meet. So from the beginning, you're feeling for them. For the beginning, you're watching them get, experience the torment of the world that they live in as prisoners of this company and this system. And so I think at the end of the day, the heist feel of these guys coming together saying we're going to get in there and we're going to get our destiny together. I loved that premise, and it makes you want to buy into the band, whether you knew them all or you were going to see them all or not. I loved the decision to have Kay be pregnant. I thought that was so cool. I thought that was a smart idea, and I understand. I know. We've seen this before. We've seen some shit like this before. Yo, when I saw
Right.
her
That's
pregnant,
Covenant, right? That's Covenant.
right? When I saw her pregnant, though, we said we know where this going. We know how this gonna end. And
Right.
yet,
But it It took you.
it took you a different way. It subverted your expectations throughout the whole process. So I want to stop and talk a little bit about that subtext, because I think that's the biggest thing for me personally. So I'm just going to stop and let a couple shots off here.
Give me one moment, because you brought up the pregnancy. This is where my Easter egg fun time
Oh,
comes
say
in.
that. Say that.
Alvarez, when writing this movie, was playing a video game. What video game do you think he was playing?
Last of Us.
The Last of Us Part 2. So if you don't want spoilers for the HBO show, stop listening right now. He's playing Last of Us 2, and he's spoken about this. He meets the character of Dina, and he decides in his movie he's going to incorporate Dina. And so he writes the thing, they film the movie, they shoot that shit, whatever. They finish Alien production. And then the girl that he has in his movie playing Kay now becomes casted as Dina in the HBO Last of Us show, where we know her character will become pregnant.
Yes.
Full circle moment right here.
Yeah.
On top of that, you know what's even wilder? The planet, the colony that they're from in Alien is called Jackson, which is where they're from in Last of Us.
That's
Dina's
crazy.
from Jackson. So right now, this is going to be really strange watching HBO next year, watching the same shit go down. We're going to have to watch her struggle while being the pregnant and all that.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's dope that he paid that. And now he gets to sit here and say, look at this Easter egg that I had an Easter egg, and now it's a double Easter egg that I didn't even intend.
Yeah.
That's cool, bro.
I
think that's sick. And I love that for him.
That level of double Easter egg, by chance, is when it was intended through the film and certain pieces of writing and script and nuance and contrast, and just that stuff is felt. So it's like Fede really kind of, I'm gonna be watching for whatever is next from him, is what I'm trying to say. That's what this made me feel like after I saw this flick. I said, oh yeah, anything he puts his fingers on, I'm def in there for sure, without a doubt. And I'm not saying I didn't see the Don't Breathes. I'm not even saying I don't respect what Evil Dead is. Like, yeah, cool. But like this was like, oh, you have the potential to write and create stories that have balance and depth. And that is why I can't hear none of the bullshit about Force Awakens, because Force Awakens, as much as it does copy what came before, at the end of the day, it introduces new themes based on those principles. These new themes are their own in some senses. And that's what I thought was cool about this. It was modernizing the story, even though it obviously takes place between Alien and Aliens. So I'm looking at this movie, and I think the part where it clicked for me was when everybody's already dying. Everyone's already dying. The alien's already outside. It's already popping off. And it's the scene when Kay finds the like the egg or the planted version of the alien on the wall, and Bjorn comes up behind her and puts his hand on her mouth, right? As soon as he puts his hand up on her mouth and she makes eye contact with him, this notion of, oh shit, this is the baby daddy.
Absolutely.
It goes into your dome if you're paying attention. And if you miss it, then that means you missing a lot of the whole film. Because if you're not watching on that frequency, then you're not catching like 70% of the flick itself. They do a lot in that space, in that depth. The way that it's this subtext, oh shit, you lying on who baby dad is. It's this guy.
She ain't lie though. Because her words were just some asshole. And I'm going to tell you what, he's been the only asshole I've seen this entire movie.
That's true. But that desire as a viewer to figure it out and to understand and to what's going on, that is something they play into through the writing that is so good,
Right.
And
you also got to wonder, bro, like, why? Like, that's her cousin. Why did Fede make that choice, bro?
Dog, hey, man, they doing what they doing because they can do it in the world. And that homage is through respecting that world. That is what I'm trying to say. It's like, it makes sense in this realm, and as these kids are where they're at, Right. And yeah, bro, he took the knob all the way. The body horror and the concept horror is something that he played into. He's good at that, right? Evil Dead, Don't Breathe. We talking about like sperm in the basement. Like, we understand. So he's not afraid of these concepts, and he plays into them in a tasteful way in this flick, bro. So I love that.
I just think it's a shame that he had to come out and confirm. It's like, I feel like if you watch the movie with your eyes open,
right,
Like, it's there for you to see that. So for him to confirm, I guess, cool. I know now versus 100% think. 100% thinking and know are two different things.
Right.
But yeah, I was in there like, that's different. And when I had a discussion with someone about it after, we obviously started cracking jokes. He was like, shit, yo, I'm out. I can't even say some of these jokes. It makes sense.
Yeah, bro. I wanna touch on some things I was telling my boy. Shout out Locke. We were talking and he was like, I think the pacing was weird at the end. I think from the girl being pregnant and getting caught and dying, he was like, something changed for me, but other than that, I felt like it was beautifully acted, beautifully filmed, some of the best cinematography. I said, nah, bro. First off, we got to stop and say, big praise to David Johnson. Okay, have you
Okay,
seen David
if we
Johnson in
listen,
anything?
if we're doing
No,
this,
I
I
have
have
to.
never seen him, bro. I've never seen him before, and right as of right now, he has my favorite acting performance of the
Of
year.
the year. He was going the switching between the two modes with a chip in his dome and the oh, we must move
The
on. Like he was going crazy in this flick,
dummy.
and I've never seen him in anything. And so when you talk about who are these kids, why do we care about these broke, busted, poor kids? Hey man, he made me care about him, bro. And he's an android. All right.
Right,
How is the android the most fantastic human in the whole flick? It's just so smart, bro. It's so smart. They it almost reminded me of like Styles' performance as the Nogitsune in season was it 3B? It was like, oh shoot, this this dude's kind of carrying everything on his back right now, and he's going
right.
stupid.
And the thing is, like, he wasn't even carrying everything on his back, but it felt that way.
Right,
But he wasn't because
right.
there's nothing here from acting wise, which we're gonna shout the people out straight up
No
later.
issues.
No issues.
Not even the
He
CGI was an issue.
My favorite acting performance as of September 13th, 2024 of 2024.
Yeah,
It was fantastic. So
yeah.
I'm gonna be rooting for him for supporting actor in the
I agree.
Oscars because I hope he's up there. I
I,
really do.
I really do. So this is what I said. I said, bro, the thing about this that gives me a stomach ache. This movie gives me a stomach ache is because it's just so good with its writing. I said the idea of alien being subtext in the background, like I said, and then realizing that this idea of alien was kind of applied to Andy as an android. Alien would mean not from here. Alien would mean not like us. So they play through this theme of you're not like us. So therefore, you're worth sacrificing. So therefore, you're not worth considering. So therefore, why is Rain losing her mind over you? And then that concept is tied to the engineer that's still alive, that's trying to keep this species alive. And it's like, I want that species to keep living. And so it's like they do this kind of this parallel vibe between Rain fighting for this android and the engineer fighting for this alien species. And this story just kind of happens between these cross points. But the underneath of it all is the human condition, is this idea of just being human. So I said it's the perfect back droid for the humans. I said when she declares at the end that she will fix him, that she'll fix Andy, it parallels to the scientist wanting to save the alien. I said, and that perspective is littered throughout the movie with human relationship and emotion being something that prevails. It drives, it's the gravity. I said, the white boy coming up behind the sister with intimacy, and we're able to conclude that he's the baby's father. The fact that he was effing on his boy's sister, his, yo, that right there is a minor detail that the baby they made is indicative of mankind's tendency to be its own worst enemy. And that becomes the vehicle that we get this whole thing through. So when people are like, it's the same, shut up, because it's actually an extremely human story, but it's just told through alien language. So therefore, they show homage to that language. They show homage to that world. They show homage to that movie that Fede probably grew up watching, but he still told this new human story. I was just super, super astonished by that, bro. I thought that was so smart. And when I left the theater, I was so pleasantly impressed. That concept was impressed upon me as a human. What are the things that I fight for? What are the things that what's alien to me? What's special to me? And how much of me fighting for those things I find special come at the cost of the people left and right of me. That was what was left on my chest, as she's left with no one except for Andy, who may get fixed or may not. This dream that she wakes up with as the first scene in the movie is what she's headed toward. Yet on the way there was so much death and carnage, and it has you as the viewer questioning, was it even worth it in the first place to lose all of who she lost on the way there? I just thought they did that really, really well, bro. It was just so good. It was so good. And that's why I think I love it. And if we go to Dune 2 as my favorite movie of the year, it does writing and nuance to such a deep contextual level, similar to the way they were able to scratch the surface of in this film. And I think that's why it's so impressive to me from a script standpoint. It was acted well, but the writing was paced beautifully.
Right.
And I would watch this movie over and over and over again. If somebody was like, yo, I'm going tonight, I would go. I would go
Right.
because
Right.
it's
I
like
almost
that.
pulled up for IMAX again. I
I'm
almost did.
sure.
I seen the movie twice. I almost pulled up to IMAX.
I'm sure.
But they flip flopping on the IMAX schedule right now. Like I was like,
Yeah,
oh, why are
there's
they
a lot
still
out.
showing Twisters today? And then tonight, it's their IMAX.
There's a
But
lot
oh
out
well,
right now. That's why.
Um,
But yeah, man,
listen, bro,
movie's great,
this
bro.
human condition. It's like something that we're struggling with right now in a political climate is immigration and people immigrating for a better life, knowing the risks, knowing that there's death involved, knowing that they could end up put into a cell, and they're still doing it because the conditions that they're coming from are unacceptable. You can't live in them, and that's the story that's told here. They're taking risk, and then that risk becomes even bigger and greater,
Yeah.
and they just have to try and do what they can to survive, and they
Yeah.
all are desperate. It's true desperation. Again, I'm emphasizing the point that these were not people that were ready for this mission. Yeah, an alien, that group, they weren't ready for the mission, but they were trained. They were out there for a purpose
Yeah.
that was for something. These kids are out there for themselves. These are kids. I know they're not 17. They're still kids compared to everyone else we've ever seen in the franchise. So it's just like, that's so real and it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
And maybe not everybody thinks like that, maybe because of cultural things. Maybe I view it differently. I'm not even talking political nature. I just know that it's a political conversation that happens at times, but
Yeah.
cultural wise, I thought about it instantly. I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, this is sad.
Yeah.
And it's the way it's told. And there's a movie and a movie sequel that we're going to be talking about later this year that I'm going to also be bringing up the conversation about how ignore what its franchise is. Ignore that. Look at what it's trying to deliver. There's some good stuff there. And I
There
mean, this
is.
is that. This is that.
There is, man. They touch on it all. They touch on it all while pushing it forward, not just with the way it looks and even down to the final alien being this hybrid chimera version of alien plus human. Like that was also, did you know that was acted? Like an actual actor did that?
Yes.
Love that. That was so cool. I think from a writing standpoint, before we get into the final section of acting, it's like, the themes of military capitalism, that's in there. It's been in there since the beginning, since 79, and it's in here now. That was definitely nodded to, down to the human versus the androids. That's not the first time they've done that, but they definitely took it deep here. But what I also loved was, even again, we said lines were crossed, like this whole like assault, like this whole like sexual assault or bodily assault is also not new. You've seen it, you've
Right.
seen the sex scene attack.
I
Like
mean,
it's
they look
it's
they look like penises
yeah,
and vaginas.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
all there.
They're going stupid, and I don't know, man. I really, really enjoyed this film because it felt like I aligned myself with a certain part of movie culture, and I felt like a guest, and I felt welcomed. And I think that was what their goal was with this. You know how they have those video games or even those movies and TV shows where it's like, yeah, no, they've made it so that if you've never seen the first season or if you've never played the first game, you can still jump in. That's what this has to it. And again, I don't think that that's an easy feat. I think that that's actually really difficult to pay homage to what came before while opening the door to new people. There is a new generation of Alien fans, even like Generation Z and Alpha, that will watch this movie and it will become their classic that will take them back to the classics. And that's so cool. And that we are an example of that. as a millennial, I'm an example of that. You know, I just look at the whole thing and I'm like, man, what an honor to see this flick this year. Y'all are cooking. It's not been a lot of movies this year that have made me feel the way that this movie made me feel. And the actors are a very big reason why that's the case. So who do you want to shout out acting wise? Is there anybody in
So
particular as we
I'm
start to
going through
wrap
the
up?
list because it's not a big list, you
Sure.
know. David Johnson, we already spoke about this
Cooked.
man.
He needs a
Cooked.
freaking nomination or award.
So, if I gotta throw out a young actor who may or may not need a role, maybe in a DC universe as a Jon Stewart type character,
I want him in a Nolan or a Denis film. I just want him somewhere else that's like high end.
put him
Like,
out there, bro. Put him out there. I
please,
want to see
God,
him in other places.
please.
Next, we'll go with Kaylee Spaney. I have not seen her in a lot of her stuff. I did watch Civil War earlier this year, though, and she was my favorite part of Civil War outside Wagner, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
They were my two favorite parts. I was like, yo, I want to see her in other stuff.
Yeah.
So when I realized she was the main character in this movie, I was
Yeah.
even more excited.
She's having a hell of a 2024 for sure.
Come on, son. So I'm tapped in on her. People need to stop with this. She should have been Ellie. Could she have been? If they would have, found her back then, sure. Some people say she was even in the roll call for the role. Whatever. It is not happening anymore. Let her do other things. Stop tying her down to Ellie, bro. She looked like it, yeah, but stop.
I'm glad she wasn't.
She was fantastic.
She's going to be in the second season of Beef, by the way. You need to watch that if you haven't seen it. You saw that, right?
I've seen it. I've seen it.
You saw that,
Come on,
right?
son. Yeah, she was great. I loved her as this role. Archie Rennox.
Renault.
He played Tyler. I enjoyed him, and I enjoyed him more on my second watch to see how he understands there's conflict in his group, and yet he wants the best for all of them, and he's gonna try to make it work.
Yep. He's
we
an
also know
archetype
that
of character. He's the leader of the group,
right,
and he plays it well.
And he has that romantic relationship with Rain, and that they're trying to like clearly avoid, but it's still there. There's a spark. They're smiling at each other.
Yes.
And the scene that really I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling him is when his sister Kay is locked up and she's like, open the door. And instead of doing the get angry at Andy, he gets on his knees and he holds his hand. And he's like, please open the door. It's after he finds out she's pregnant. That gentle. Desperation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He killed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bjorn, Spike Fern. I liked him. I liked him in this because I think he was the antagonistic character that we needed, bro. He was exactly who we needed. And also, I'm pretty sure he was in the Batman, if I'm not mistaken.
He was one of the goons at the start of the movie.
In the train
he's
station.
on another movie, and I'm going to use this chance on record right now because I may or may not have told you to watch this before, but I'm using this on the record, staying in the episode so the people know I told you. Caught in 4K, Isaiah, whether it be you alone, you and your wife, you sit down and you watch After, son.
Okay.
Do it.
That's a 24.
2022.
Right?
A24. Yes. Come on, son.
Okay.
It is in my top 5 movies of the 2020s.
Okay.
And so if you don't know anything about it, don't look it up.
Okay.
And just watch the movie. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing.
I'll put that on. I'll put that on probably this weekend.
I look forward to hearing you come back to me. And I will also say, don't do it if you want to do something else afterwards.
You're gonna just be devastated type deal is what you're saying. Okay.
Aileen Wu as Navarro.
Yeah, she cooked, and I wish she could be in Last of Us Part 2, but hey, it is what it is. She cooked, and though she died quick, she died gloriously. They put her in the trailer for a reason. That was excellent acting.
So the trailer I'm going to use to talk about now, the first trailer brought me in. The second trailer was one of the worst trailers I've seen in a movie in a really long time. I would love to tap back into a conversation we've had about trailers before. Maybe hit a redo, remake, or however we can now. We're more used to the CUZZO-OP flow, and I think there's a lot of interesting conversation there still.
Absolutely.
Bad second trailer, really bad. Shame on them for playing those in theaters because it was telling you a lot. It was telling you a lot.
You already spoke on Isabella. You did great. We're excited to see you in Last of Us.
I'm speaking on her more, bro, because she was, besides David, I loved her. Now it might also be influenced by the fact that I think she's extremely beautiful,
She is. She's
but
beautiful. She is beautiful.
she was fantastic. And when you watch these thrillers and horror movies, you're looking for something specific. And the gut wrenching scream that she let out when Navarro died is still ringing in my ears.
Yep.
She killed that mess, and it was my example that I didn't want to say yet of when they let her scream continue as the ship was crashing into the other ship. It starts with her, cuts, and it's still screaming.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
She was great. She was all the way to the point of her death. I was pissed that she didn't make it through. Shocked that they let her survive the first time, and then they killed her the second time, and I was devastated.
Yeah.
And I'm tapped in on her. I'm ready to go through her whole filmography,
She
bro.
had to carry the kid. And speaking of the kid, shout out to Robert Bobrovsky, I think, or Zaki. He's
right.
The guy who played the
offspring,
chimera offspring. Yeah,
the offspring.
Come on,
crazy.
That's
craziness.
insane. He did his thing. He was creepy as shit.
I will say that when they first show him, when they cut, because it shows Kay looking off, and then it shows Andy slowly turn around. When it shows him, he's just there like that. The loudest, biggest, craziest gasps I've ever heard in a movie theater.
Sure.
It adds to that favorite experience. The what the fuck? The dude sitting next to me. What the hell is that? I'm talking mad loud. Like, this was a theater
Shameless.
in its entirety. What the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
And so I know that sounds kind of crazy as we talk about the actor, because this is a real person.
But they
killed that mess.
They did it in his whole walking side. It was crazy. Any of the behind the scenes shots of them going, action, and you seeing that, I recommend looking them up. It's crazy, bro. It's insane.
It is great, and it is movie making magic. This is a movie I would say is movie making magic, because I haven't experienced something like this in a long time. Do you have any other actors that you wish to?
No, sir. I'm good to wrap. I'm good to wrap up.
Actually,
I feel like we got all of.
I want to talk about real quick, bro. Homages and Easter eggs.
Oh, word.
I already brought up the Last of Us Easter egg, but another fun Easter egg, I don't know if you heard about this, is the director is a huge fan of Alien Isolation.
Okay.
And in the game, there are save points that you would save, and if you're a video gamer, before you go and you hit a save point, some shit's coming up, right? It's in Borderlands when you have vending machines going into a one in and out, that you about to hit a boss fight. There are save points from the game. He built the machines scattered throughout the movie right before something big happens. They walk by it. They don't, they're not going to go. They walk by it. It's just a set piece. But if you see it, you know, and it's scattered throughout the film.
That's tough.
That's heat. The black goo that Kay injects from Prometheus and Covenant to tie that in. This is Alvarez saying, I love you, Ridley. I hope you get your third film.
Yeah.
Her having a baby, that's a callback to other films where they did the C-section.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even Rain with the gun, it feels a little bit alien-y, or aliens-y, I should say. The sequence of her shooting and then floating through on the zero gravity.
And her short haircut, the way she literally is the embodiment. I feel like they knew they had ideas of what it was. Almost like they were reading an alien comic book and said, yeah, we're gonna take that exact shot, we're gonna put that on the camera.
Right.
That's how they did it. That's how homage heavy it is. And so I can understand people saying it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. They didn't do the same thing. They just tipped their hat to the things they came from.
There's a line that people get upset with when he's like, get away from her, you bitch. Why did they have to do that? For the last 10 years, I feel like people suck as movie watchers. Because I know 20, 30 years ago, if someone were to drop the same line in the movie, even though they really have no reason to, other than the fact that it's in the franchise, people would hit that Peter Griffin, he said the thing, and enjoy it because it's celebratory. Now it's, But why do they just want to copy that? Because it's so fucking stupid that they can't do
Stupid, bro.
anything original. They just made it so corny and cheesy and yada yada yada. I'm like,
The
yo, can
idiocy
you
we
just
have to deal with in
relax,
this day and
bro?
age,
Can you
unfortunately.
relax?
We're not
Last thing.
we're not here for you. I promise. We're here for others, just so you know,
Is
person.
it corny? Yes, but can you breathe? Can you live with it? Yes,
I
you
loved it.
can.
I loved it.
Last thing of importance, then we can finish the conversation off, is controversially the character of Rook. Now we know that Daniel Brett, right? Daniel Bretts, I believe is his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. That's the guy who's playing him currently.
Yeah. Isn't it Ian Holm or something like that?
Ian Holm is the actor from the original
Mm-hmm.
Alien movie. Why do you use a deceased actor? Could they have used Michael Fassbender? Could they use Homeboy from Aliens, who was the android in that movie? And could they have? Yeah. But, you know, I'm very cautious when I hear things like that. Number one, is the CG around him wonky sometimes? Sure, whatever. I accept it. Why do they do it? Alvarez spoke that he felt like that character needed more, and he was only ever in the first film, and he just wanted to use that and tie that in. And you know what? Okay, sure, let me hear more. Then I hear the family speak out, and they said that they loved it, that they loved that it was a celebration
They did
towards
it with his
him.
blessing too. They
And
did it with their
it's
blessing.
like, you know what, is this something that we need to worry about in Hollywood? Yes, because there are times where it's done distastefully, or it's done in ways that you're like, you really shouldn't do that. Like all the stuff with Luke Skywalker, like, was it cool in the Mando season 2 finale? Yeah, but the Book of Boba Fett is pushing it, and if they continue to go forward, it's going to become more questionable. But for this to be, again, a celebration of what has come before and the people that have been a part of this franchise, to celebrate him like that with the family's blessing and love of it, coming from a place of no ill intent, I'm okay with it.
Ultra homage.
It was the one thing out walking out I was questionable with, and now I can say, after hearing reasonings and understandings and getting the family, but okay, I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
I approve, and I think overall, to just finish this conversation off, 9 out of 10, and I'm thinking about just bumping it up. I
Yeah.
think this is one that'll stick with me for a while.
I
And
think so. I give this like a solid, probably like a, me, I like points. So like 9.3, like a 9.4. I think, the only thing stopping it for me is maybe the type of movie that it is in general. Like I'm not even that big of, I told you, I'm not that big of this genre, a
right,
fan of this genre. So it was
right.
pleasant to see this. And it reminds me of how it felt when I left it. And I left it chapter 2. It's like, dang, um, maybe I need to be watching more of these. I'm missing out on this world. There's some really great stories in here. But one of my favorite stories of the year, hands down, one
Yeah,
of the most human stories of the year. And it was very well paced. Cinematography was excellent. Sound, we said, was beautiful. Acting out the wazoo, not a bad actor in the whole flick. They really just knocked everything out of the park,
knocked it out
man.
of the park. Straight up. I
So
like the genre, and this is the closest to Alien, in which Alien is my second. I like the thriller.
yeah,
Actionies,
yeah,
epics, okay.
yeah.
But that thriller horror slasher,
They
send
cooked.
that my way.
They
Send that my
cooked.
way. Thank you, Alien Romulus. I appreciate you
Yeah,
for putting something up against Furiosa,
yeah.
because for a while there, I don't know, it wasn't looking great.
I'm gonna go back and watch them. And we thank you, the listener, for listening to us just geek out over this film. If you haven't seen it, we highly recommend it. And then I recommend it in theaters if you can get it in theaters. I don't know if the same experience is possible elsewhere, but it was a beautiful time. The thing about us here at CUZZO-OP is, we're gonna always watch things, even if it's outside of our world. Even when it comes to gaming, we try to watch and play things that aren't necessarily normal to us. And we hope that by you hearing how we had those experiences, it causes you to do the same in the way you consume entertainment. We need that. We need that more in the world. And so that's something you're always going to get from us, that inspiration. So let us know what you thought about this film. If you have seen it, put it down in the comments on YouTube, or maybe respond to us via the prompt on Spotify or wherever you're listening to our podcast. And be sure to share this, especially with your friends that love this series. But we'll be back. We've got more to talk about this year. There are more movies, more TV shows, and more video games that are coming out. And we'll
And
be
even
here to
some
talk
award
about, oh, and some award
shows.
shows. We'll be here talking about it all. Every time you tap in with us, you're going to find a couple things. That's two cousins, one podcast, and endless entertainment. Peace.